Hi, I'm Rebecca Balcarcel. Let's take a look at The Road Not Taken, a very famous poem by Robert Frost. Famous in English anyway, and especially in the United States because he's one of our most beloved American poets. Well, let's get right into the first stanza. The road not taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. So here we have a traveler who's talking to us about his experience. He says, here I am in the woods and I come to a fork in the road and I have to choose one or the other. And he feels a little disappointed at this because he'd like to go down both roads. But he's only one traveler, and just like in life, we find ourselves having to choose one direction or another, and we try to look down one path and see where it's going to lead and hopefully get data on which to base a decision. He tries to do that. He says, long I stood and looked down as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, so it bends out of sight. Now let's notice a couple technical things going on here. For one thing, we have rhyme. You might have heard would, stood, could. That's line 1, 3, and 4. And then you have both and undergrowth. So line 2 and 5, we have these rhymes. And this is a pattern that's going to repeat throughout the poem. Robert Frost loves form. He once said that writing a poem without any form, just free verse, would be like playing tennis with the net down. So he did not approve of formless poems or patternless poems, and he put pattern into his poems. And one of those patterns is the rhyme. Now he also keeps a line pretty consistently here of 9 syllables. It's in sort of a da-da, da-da, da-da type of a rhythm with iambs, little packets of unstressed and then stressed syllables. But he doesn't use the normal 8-beat line with 4 of those little packets. Instead, there's always an extra syllable. Well, not always. Not every single line is exactly the same length. One has 10, most of them have 9. Occasionally there's an 8. But he's keeping the line very close to the same length all the way through. He likes the consistency, and he wants us to know that this is crafted. It's not just thrown down on the page, even though it sounds casual. And why does it sound casual? Well, partly he's choosing a rhythm, this da-da, I am rhythm, where you have unstressed and stressed syllables, to be sounding talkative and conversational. That is the rhythm that a lot of English words use. So he's using that rhythm on purpose to sound casual, conversational, and he's also got a casual situation here. It feels like we're being pulled up next to this person, maybe pull up next to the fire or sidle up to this person and hear about his adventure on this path traveling through the woods. It feels like we're hearing a real voice. Let's keep hearing that voice in stanza 2. Then took the other path, okay? Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though, as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. So now he looks down the other path, and he sees that, well, maybe this one's a little better because it's grassy. It hasn't been walked on as much. It wanted wear. It means that it didn't have as much traffic on it. Looked like maybe it wanted someone to use it. Now, he says that really they were worn about the same. So ultimately, we don't see a huge difference between these two paths, at least not yet. And he says that maybe it'd be better to go on the one that didn't have as much traffic. It didn't have as many people walk on it. And why would that be better? Well, maybe because it's a little less conventional, a little less expected. The path that is not as common might be the better one. Okay. But for now, he says they actually look about the same. Now here's stanza 3. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. All right, so he says that both of the paths equally lay there without having been walked on so far today. He says no step had trodden them black. So no step had made them dark with footsteps and mud and being pressed down like leaves pressed into the mud. So both paths are untaken this morning anyway. And he says, oh, I kept the first for another day. So he's decided, okay, I'm not going on the first path. I'm going on that other one, the grassy one that wanted where. And this was his decision point. But then he says, you know what? I probably won't be able to take that path another day. I'm going to save it for another day, but probably I will not be back here because way leads on to way. One road leads to another, and I probably won't be back here at this spot where I can try out that other road. And this is true of life so often, that you don't get a chance to go back and do it over again. Although, you know, hopefully we can make new decisions that lead where we want, but it's true that you really can't take both paths. And he says, well, you know, I doubt I'll ever be back to be able to take that other path. Last stanza. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now, I'm a pretty positive person, and so I interpret those final lines as being positive. To me, it seems like Frost is saying, I took the road less common, less expected, less normal, and I'm glad I did. However, there is another way to read this poem. Notice the word sigh. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. A sigh is usually a sign of regret or nostalgia. You know, it's hard to think of a sigh in a positive way. Maybe he does regret this choice. Maybe the sigh is evidence that he didn't take the right path after all. Now, in the positive reading, the sigh might just be a normal, you know, that's life, and, well, I'm okay where I am, but yeah, I had to let that one path go. So the regret would just be that I couldn't do both. Or maybe the regret really is that this was the wrong one. There's another technical thing I want to point out, and that is the repetition of I. And I took the one less traveled by. And we have a dash between these two words. And I dash I. Why do we have the dash? Partly we have a rhythm there established, and I took the one. If you're reading it in the positive light, it sounds like determination and confidence. I took the one less traveled by. I am special. I made the right decision. But again, it can be read the opposite way as being unsteady, unsure, and I took the one less traveled by. That's what I did. I'm not sure I was right, and the I seems hesitant then, and it gets repeated because the speaker is trying to say this to himself and really accept this poor decision. Now there's even another way to read the poem, not just totally positive or totally negative. There's an idea that Frost is not writing about himself at all, but someone else who has trouble being at peace with decisions. So every time he makes a decision, he rethinks it, doubts himself, and so the voice then here would be a character who chooses a road and never quite feels at peace with it and doesn't ever come to just relax about that decision, but keeps stressing about it even after it's long over with. Well, that's a third reading of the poem, and I wonder what you think. I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Thanks for joining me for this video.